The opposition NDC's Director of Research, Dr. William Ahaji, has categorically denied media publications suggesting the party's packaging of its presidential candidate was one of the factors that caused its defeat in the 2016 election. A section of the media referring to the work of the Kwesi Botchwey Committee, which investigated the laws, reported that candidate John Mahama lived the life of a movie star. Dr. Ahaji, however, says the reports are untrue. According to him, what is purported to be leaked sections of the 450-page document is just a propaganda tool of the governing MPP to cover up pressing issues it needs to address. Speaking on Upfront with Raymond Akwa, Dr. Haji said he does not remember seeing names such as that of former Communications Minister Dr. Omane Boamah and Presidential Staffer Standogbe in that report. He maintains the party will not disclose the specific content of the report, but will work with the recommendations.
Out there.
No, that's not true.
Sections that says that Dr. Omane Boamah and also the presidential staffer Standogbe were to be held heavily responsible for the NDC's defeat.
No, that's not true. It's a 455-page report.
Is there nothing like that in the report?
There's nothing like that, and take that from me.
Are the names of Dr. Omane Boamah and Standogbe
I'm not going to disclose that one, but I'm saying that...
No, but that's important. If their names are mentioned, we should get to know whether or not...
You see,
respectfully, these are senior government officials in the previous administration.
On that,
you cannot just say it is not there when you don't tell us what...
I can't make any comment on that, but I'm saying that...
You can't tell us whether their names are not in the report.
I don't remember seeing them.
Is the names in the report?
I don't remember seeing them.
Okay, have you read the entire report?
Well...
You're part of those who put it together.
Yes, I'm saying... That's why I'm saying that don't... You made a conclusive statement that the report is out there and people are serializing
the daily guide is serializing
and that's the point I'm making, that is false. That is political strategy.
What is out there is not a report.
It is false. Take it from me. I'm saying it is false.
Which part of it is the false one?
The assertions that are being made are false.
The former President Mahama conducted himself, according to your report, like a movie star.
But have you seen the report?
I have not seen that. I have seen excerpts of what is supposed to be in there.
Your statement is based on what
the daily guide is serializing.
And we know daily guide.
You don't think they are...
It's a propaganda tool for the MPP. So, I mean, you see, it's just a weak attempt to divert attention from happening. It's a political strategy.
I see.
When there are very pressing issues that people are crying over, the tendency is for any political party or, you know, the people behind the twisting and the managing of political information to try and divert attention from the challenges.
In the report,
it's
who are those held responsible for the NDC's defeat?
You're pushing me to make a comment on something that...
But you say that the names are not there. We have these names. You can't tell us which names are also there.
No, I can't tell.
How do we know that you actually have them?
You know why NPP commissioned a study also? Why is the president...
NDC has not lost elections. The MPP did not lose the previous election.
Oh, but this whole conversation...
We are interested in why the NDC lost the election from its own mouthpiece.
No, but you see, we gave you an indication.
Oh, those were very vague items on how. Really,
that's all we are prepared to share. Anything. Basically, that's all we are prepared to share.
Exactly. With the female members of the NDC who are listening now.
So you see, what I'm saying is that you will see evidence of the recommendations that were made in reorganizing the party, but as to the detail, I'm sorry, that's you I'm going to get.
So all that you have said is that it's not true. You've not provided any evidence to suggest it's not true.
Well, as I'm saying, that's not something I want the conversation to hang around.
Okay.
Because it's not going to come out, and let's Daily Guide spread that as much as possible. We can't prevent them from saying what they want to say, but you see, it's this whole attempt at knocking heads, it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, the minority NDC is protesting government's decision to sell off some assets of the Volta River Authority, arguing it does not make sense. Government has advertised the sale of some of the authority's thermal assets, saying it is not doing a good job with the management of the thermal plant, and so should focus on just hydropower generation. Workers of the VRA disagree and have warned the move could prove disastrous. Ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, Adam Utawakilu, also believes the move could erode the gains made in the sector thanks to the interventions put in place by the previous administration. He tells Joy News the minority will support private sector participation in the management of the assets, but not an outright sale.
Manage the turmoil. And we believe that injecting some level of private participation will be good. So you can list it on the stock exchange for Ghanaians to have shares in VRA, but not to sell the plant to individuals. This is our position. If government takes that position, we'll support government wholly.
So the challenges will be independent power producers that government will want to bring in, because
if government is bringing in, are they buying the whole plant, or they want to partner with another body management? These are two. Is it that they will participate by buying shares, or government say, okay, we are selling it out wholly? And we said the wholly will not. Don't just come and buy 100%. Come and buy some percentage and take part. Because the foundation laid by NDC, everybody will admit that the future is bright. So why do you sell the plants again? Why do you sell the plants again? Let's invite. It's mostly government intervention. So if you privatize this partly, you realize that government intervention will be a bit limited and discipline will be instilled. We realized in 2008, Ghana Commercial Bank was on a route to be sold. We injected private equity into it. And today, the government that wanted to sell it is now using it to leverage other banks. So that tells you that private participation, a certain portion, is very key.
The Ghana Journalists Association is now a labor union with the power to negotiate conditions of service for journalists and those working in the media. The certificate of unionization was formally handed over to the GJA by the Trade Union Congress and comes decades after the association was formed. GJA President Roland Afil-Moni at the presentation ceremony says media personnel can now expect the association to fight on their behalf to improve working conditions and make them better off.
Indeed, it would be at the height of ingratitude to turn our guns on media owners, all in the name of unionization. Unionization in the second term of our administration, inshallah, should and will be a vehicle to enhance the conditions of service of media workers, but not a weapon to antagonize media owners. We don't have the luxury of time to sermonize on the benefit of unionization. A few facts, however, will suffice. Unionized employees make an average of 30% more pay than non-unionized workers. 92% of union workers have health-related coverage. Union workers also enjoy guaranteed pensions. These facts and many more contrast sharply with the general conditions of media workers in Ghana. A recent survey by the TUC on the wages and working conditions of media workers indeed highlighted the blatant but heart-rending reality that media practitioners are among the poorly paid workers in Ghana. In some worst-case scenarios, many journalists are not paid at all. One may ask, what crime have the affected or struggling journalists committed for them to be condemned to the pauperized community? Thank God, the pitiable, ignoble, and horrible narrative will be consigned to the dustbin of history.
Deputy Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress, Joshua Ansa, cautioned media owners and managers they have to ensure compliance with the country's labor laws in the engagement of media personnel, failing which they would have to contend with the TUC.
I believe that once you now have the certificate, we are urging all employees to respect the tenets of the certificate and also respect the basic ILO conventions. Right to work, right to organize, and right to negotiate. Any employer who stands on our way in our quest to ensure that our journalists in this country are well catered for in terms of collective bargaining agreements, we will render every support that is needed to make sure that employer is brought to book. Madam Chair, Regularizing the process of your unionization has been a problem, but now it's no longer going to be a problem because the major step has already been taken. Once you have been issued the unionization certificate, the TUC family will do all that it could to ensure that your application will be considered by the family and will be properly placed where you belong. On that note, once again, I want to commend all of you for supporting your leadership in the quest of getting a bargaining certificate, which has lasted since 1968 to date. On this note, brothers and sisters, I will, on behalf of the Executive Committee of TUC once again, wish to present to the President, on behalf of the Labour Department, the newly born baby, that is the certificate of unionization. That empowers you to organize from Paga to Axim and from whatever village to another village.
Well, joining us is Maxwell Agbagba has been speaking with some journalists who are excited by the move because they believe it will make them better off. But there are others who think it could lead to some layoffs.
The Trade Union Congress today presented a certificate of unionization to the Ghana Journalists Association. Well, we understand that they've been looking at unionizing for about 6 decades now, but that has finally happened. It happened today at the International Press Center. We are here at the newsroom of Atinka FM to find out from colleague journalists what they think about unionizing, what they think about the GJA receiving its certificate of unionization. Let's find out from some journalists what they think about this move and whether they think it would go a long way to better their interests. First of all, let me talk to you, sir. What's your name?
My name is Ofuenuje Patrick.
Ofuenuje Patrick.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sure you heard the news today.
Yes.
How did you receive it?
It is welcoming. Why am I saying so? First of all, I must say it's a good thing in the right direction, and it's long overdue. The reason I'm saying so is that journalists talk for people. Journalists are seen as the defenders of the defenseless. They are the voice of the voiceless. But usually we don't have journalists talking for themselves. It's difficult. And being a unionized group, I think would have a very strong voice, would have one front that we can fight for ourselves. For instance, there are some journalists, especially the young ones who are working in some media houses that have not received or they don't really pay them. They don't work under good conditions. And when we have such a group or we are unionized, I believe that we are going to we'll be able to fight very well for our interests. We'll be able to make sure that we work under good conditions. Whatever benefits we are due will be given.
Let me find out from sir, what's your name?
My name is Simon Agbovi. Well, I think it's all good, but then you know what, why now? One will ask. For me, I see it to be something we always say like politics or something, because I think it's because of the upcoming election. That's the GJA elections. Although it's a good thing, we all welcome it and we think it's a good thing to do, but like I said, I think it's because of the elections. Yeah.
Well, the GJA president says that this would go a long way to help, journalists, especially those of you, in media, in private media organizations like where you work, so that they will be able to, come in and then bargain on your behalf and do a lot of things for you, fight on your behalf. I'm sure you're excited by this.
Yeah, that one for sure, because myself, I can't remember covering a demonstration, that's an event demonstration, and while I was following them, I just said to myself that, okay, fighting for these people because they were protesting and they were protesting because of their salaries. And I just said to myself, okay, if I'm going to report on this issue to tell government that, okay, this is the issue, these people want their salary being increased and all that, how about me? Who's going to fight for me? Who's going to talk for me? Who's going to talk for me? So I just think we being unionized for now, I think it's a good thing, because going a long way, yes, for sure, it will do a greater good to the organization and let me say the media as a whole.
One of the things that the president of the Ghana Journalists Association, Mr. Roland Philmoni, mentioned today was that journalists who are part of the union, they would have guaranteed pensions. Well, he also talked about the fact that a little over 90% of journalists who are part of the union, they actually have better health care. It goes a long way to tell you how important this whole process is for, what it means for journalists. Let me find out from my friend here also. Sir, what's your name? Tell us how excited you are. Maybe you want to tell us generally what you think about the GJA receiving its certificate of unionization today after many years.
I will speak as a journalist. We go through a lot, and there are many challenges that confront us. Mostly when you are one of those guys that go for undercover and then exposing things that are uncovered, and then the challenges that follows with it. Sometimes you are beaten up, many other things follows you, and you are threatened even in your homes and stuff everywhere you go. Doing all these things is a way of making sure you are making your radio station very popular or your TV station very popular. In that regard, I believe the owners of the company should take good care of the people. But when it happened that we do all this job, sacrificing for the benefit of the station, and we're not being taken good care of, it's more of not motivating us to do more. And we have more of these stories around us that many journalists are working across the country and they are not well being paid. So I believe that this is a welcoming news, and we should do our best, and then as a wake-up call for us also to do a very positive job and reportage. For me, it's going to encourage me, knowing that there's a backbone and somebody that will speak for me. Having happened so, some people, the media owners might think it's going to be a very serious enforcement on them to pay their staffs, of which they may not be able to. So what will happen is that there's going to be a mass redundancy, because when you are there and don't see any profitability from you, then you need to go.
Well, so you heard some journalists there on the unionization of the Ghana Journalists Association. You're still watching Joy News Prime. Still ahead in the bulletin, RLG Communications is challenging a claim by the Environment, Science and Technology Minister. The company has agreed to refund 6 million cedis to the state for failing to fully honor a laptop supply agreement signed with government in 2010. We have that coming up after the break. Stay tuned.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining me on Business Tonight. Economist Dr. Eric Sayesibi has advised government to come up with an alternate plan to forestall any revenue shortfall should the final ruling by the German-based International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea, ITLOS, goes against Ghana. According to Dr. Sibi, most of governments suggested a strategic plan to avert any eventualities, even though he was optimistic Ghana would win.
If it doesn't go our way, it's really going to constrain investment, any new investment in that area, and that can affect revenue inflows from crude oil over a period of time. And so it's not going to be good for government. Government revenue from petroleum could go down, which then means that government will be constrained in some of the things that it has put in the budget. And so if it goes well, it's all well and good for the economy. We are likely to see some kind of revival in the exploration sector in terms of in the extractive industry. A lot more revenue inflows, capital inflows will come into the economy, and we're likely to see some semblance of what happened around 2010, 2011, where we have enough foreign currency inflows into the extractive sector. And if that happens, it's going to inure to the betterment of this country. The city will be stabilized and much more production or factories, related factories, will come in to, provide some kind of employment to the teeming youth of this country. So, and government revenue too could go up, and the stabilization fund, heritage fund, all of that would go up. So it will definitely be good for this country if it goes our way. But if it doesn't, I think by now we should be thinking about Plan B, what exactly would we do to mitigate, the negative impact that may have on this economy. The economy has to be managed in such a way that it is resilient to shocks, which will come anyway from time to time. You're going to, once the economy remains vulnerable and so much linked with external economies, anything that happens externally can have impact. But what matters most is whether the economy is positioned in such a way that the effect of such shocks, is minimized. So we have to begin to look at what strategy are we going to have in place to minimize whatever the outcome will be. I think it's important. So let's see, but I'm quite hopeful that tomorrow the ruling will go our way.
Meanwhile, the primary operator of the Jubilee and 10 fields, Tullow Oil, has expressed how sensitive the disputed area is to the company's operations. In an interview with Toria Business, Group CEO of Tullow, Paul McDade, noted the disputed maritime area is very key to the entire group's activities.
But we're confident that we will be going back to drilling next year. I've been this week in Ghana and here in Accra meeting with the new government, and they reassure me that there'll be an appropriate resolution to the boundary dispute through outlaws, and we'll be able to move forward.
How critical is this to the group in terms of getting past this and going ahead with your strategy and everything? Because I know that you do your own extrapolations and projections, and all these investors are also doing the same thing.
Yeah.
How critical is the completion or the finalization of this in terms of the group's plan, strategy, and implementing all the things that you have planned to turn around the business?
I think is it critical? Well, I think it's very important. I think what's important is that we've been a great champion for investment here in Ghana. Ghana is a great investment destination, and we want to portray it globally. We're a global player. We're out with global investors who watch our investments, and a big part of that investment is here in West Africa, and particularly in Ghana. So I think what's important to us is to be able to demonstrate that the investment that was made in 10, we can get on and maximize the revenues from that investment, both on behalf of the state of Ghana in terms of the fiscal payments we make, and also the returns that we want to return to our shareholders. So I wouldn't say it's critical to our business going forward, but it's very important, and it's important cash flow. All cash flow is important, but I think the important thing is that with a smooth resolution of the boundary dispute, it demonstrates to inward investors that Ghana and West Africa is a good place to invest. It's a good destination to invest, and that's something that ever since we got involved in Ghana in 2006, over 10 years ago, we've been out in the global markets pushing the case for investment in Ghana and pointing to our good relationship with the various governments that we've worked with and our ability to invest our investors' money in Ghana.
The Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana has expressed confidence in the ability of local pharmaceutical companies producing drugs locally. This follows recent directives by government to prevent the importation of some 20 drugs to allow for their production in the country. Speaking at the launch of this year's World Pharmacist Day, the president of the Pharmaceutical Society Ghana, Benjamin Kwame Botwe, said the industry will live up to expectation.
Speaking at the sidelines of the launch, President of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, Benjamin Kwame Botwe, described Ghana's pharmaceutical industry as one of the few thriving ones in the sub-region. The president revealed that with measures being implemented, he was confident local manufacturers can take on production of the drugs locally.
As a society, we can say that the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry in Ghana is quite strong. In the whole West Africa, the manufacturing bases are in Nigeria and in Ghana, and they have the capacity to be able to meet such opportunities, and I believe they will stand up today.
The launch of the Pharmacist Day was a joint initiative by Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals, the Pharmaceutical Society and the GES, and was held at the Lekma cluster of schools. Speaking to Joy Business, country manager for Johnson & Johnson, Priscilla Owusu-Setre, pointed that attention needed to be paid to the high taxes still being charged on imported drugs.
There are a lot of factors that do affect our business in general, but most of all, I would say that the heavy charges we're paying, for storage, as duty, as levy, issues at the customs, and then also the implications of devaluation of the cedi compared to the euro and then the dollar.
So is it in effect affecting the cost of drugs locally?
It would. If my partner who imports the products into the country is paying a lot in buying the foreign currency, to pay us, or paying for charges at the ports, paying a lot of charges at the customs, they will in turn, pass on the price to the patient. But this is something that we are always in negotiation with.
This year's Pharmacist Day falls on Monday, the 25th of September. Under the theme From Research to Healthcare, your pharmacist is at your service.
The manager of Dun & Bradstreet Ghana, Adebowale Atobatele, has emphasized that a better organization and credit structure will aid the development of the African economy. Speaking on Joy News' flagship thought leadership show, The Executive Lounge, he said good credit structures will aid in improving the quality of life for Africans and in turn improve the economy.
Credit or money from banks or from whatever source was thought of to be something that only the rich could get access to. Right. But now that we have credit bureaus and, with the use of credit reports, everyone should be able to get access to credit, regardless of who they are, regardless of their gender, regardless of their nationality, race, tribe. As long as they have a good credit profile, they should get access to funds, and they should be able to negotiate with the bank the interest rate. And the problem with Africa is not resource, it's not people, it's just how we've chosen to organize ourselves. And if we can tackle issues from how do I put it without sounding too political? If we could tackle our leadership deficiencies, if we could tackle, certain things within our culture that weakens our civilization, if we can tackle our poor approach to managing money, we'll be a whole lot better.
All right, so you can get a full interview on Saturday on the Executive Lounge at 5:30 p.m. My name is Emmanuel Boaji. Have a good evening.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has announced an initiative to ensure adequate water supply to the country's prisons as part of a number of measures to make them reformation centers. At a short program to kickstart the initiative, he considered the poor living conditions in the country's prisons hampers effective reformation of inmates. Elting Brober's report.
At the inauguration of the Ghana Prisons Board in July, the Vice President, drawing lessons from Joy News' set Kwame Boateng's documentary Locked and Forgotten, which highlighted conditions at the prisons, tasked the board and the Ghana Water Company to strategize on ways to address water supply challenges in the prisons. Among the measures adopted include the drilling of 2 mechanized boreholes in each prison across the country to deal with that challenge. But even before the project will kickstart, Polytank Ghana Limited is providing tanks for the project. Director General of the Ghana Prison Service, Patrick Dakomisa, said the project will strengthen the service quest to improve the general well-being of prisoners.
This project, initiated by His Excellency the Vice President, will strengthen the government's quest to improve upon the general well-being of prisoners in the country and provide the necessary guarantees to their right to life, good health and dignity whilst in prison. That the flagship project of His Excellency the Vice President, which begins today with the supply of water tanks and will communicate into the sinking of boreholes and pumping of water into the cells of the prisoners, will put the Ghana Prison Service in good stand.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said the provision of water to prisons is one of several reforms government is undertaking to make prisons appropriate reformation centers.
One of the major objectives of prison is not just to punish people, but to reform and rehabilitate people. It's very important that the conditions under which people live in prison should be human conditions. And this is why, when we looked at the issue of access to water in our prisons, we realized that there was a lot of untold and unnecessary suffering. It is only the beginning, and we are not only concerned about water, we are concerned about other issues that have to do with your welfare.
The National Democratic Congress has described as untrue leaked reports suggesting the party lost the 2016 election because candidate John Mahama was packaged or presented to the electorate as a movie star. In other news, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor George Kweku Tokodro, is calling for the entrenchment of academic freedom on the campuses of the various tertiary institutions across the country. According to him, recent happenings at the University of Education in Winneba are poisoning the academic atmosphere of the various universities. Speaking at the UTAG National Congress ongoing at the University of Cape Coast, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of UCC urged government to deal with individuals whose diverse interests are making academic life at the university unbearable.
The University Teachers Association of Ghana has been grappling with the current issues at the University of Education Winneba. The legal tussle between the university and Wansu Kofi Kwaira has thrown the university into a state of confusion. Last week, UTAG leadership declared a strike, an action that failed woefully because members of the union claimed due process was not followed. The Congress at the University of Cape Coast became a crucial moment for the union because many challenges confronting the union had to be discussed. Speaking at the Congress, Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor George Kweku Tokodro, called for the protection of academic freedom on the various university campuses. He blamed the current happenings at the University of Education Winneba as something that ought not to be blamed on the politician, but rather on an individual that is hiding under the cloak of politics to cause diverse confusion.
This relates to some antecedents to the court ruling against the Vice Chancellor of the University of Education Winneba, which has unfortunately created unnecessary tension on campus. Prior to the court's ruling that asked the Vice Chancellor to step aside, the MP for the Efutu constituency, Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markins, managed to obtain a letter dated 6th January 2017 from the co-chair of the Presidential Transitional Team, Honorable Senior Minister Engineer Yao Osafo-Mafu, appointing him as the leader of the President's transition team responsible for transition activities in the University of Education Winneba. By this arrangement, the university's management was to submit a handing over note to Honorable Afenyo-Markins. Thank God, the authorities later saw the technical hitches and hidden political agenda behind this transitional arrangement, and therefore did not push it. Professor Chair, this scenario constitutes a calculated attempt by an individual using political machinery to undermine transitional provisions prescribed in the act establishing the university and hiding behind party politics to interfere with the governance structures in a university.
Professor Odo says the students at the various universities stand to suffer if such happenings are allowed to fester.
When an educational system becomes extremely political, rather than an educational entity, students become the losers. It is therefore important that as a nation, we take bold steps to depoliticize educational issues by allowing institutional governance structures to function. Politicians should intervene when things are not going well in educational institutions, but they should not, for heaven's sake, interfere. I wish urge you delegates to demonstrate your commitment to the depoliticization agenda in your deliberations at this Congress.
Outgoing president of UTAC, Harry Agbanu, called on government and other stakeholders to help protect academic freedom. He want government to ensure that an amicable settlement is reached for peace to return on the University of Education campus.
From July 2017, the happenings in the University of Education, Winneba, threatened to dent the image of UTAC before the public. UTAC's position is that our institutions of higher learning must be allowed the freedom and autonomy enshrined in the arts and statutes of the universities to work. It is our resolve to defend and protect the integrity and dignity of our tertiary educational institutions. We, therefore, call on the government, the Governing Council of University of Education, Winneba, and all stakeholders to take immediate steps to resolve the impasse and to repair the badly damaged image of that institution. We, on our part as UTAC, will do our best to ensure that the issue is resolved amicably to ensure peace, a peaceful academic environment for our members in our university.
Richard Kwejonyako, Joy News, Cape Coast.
A senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast says Ghana is losing its history and traditions due to a failure to name monuments and historical landmarks after the country's greats. Douglas Frimpong Nro at a Poetry Festival in Cape Coast cited several such monuments and places of interest he says could be named after the country's heroes, but are instead known by the towns in which they are cited. The historian also emphasized the need for Ghanaians to protect their own instead of being proverbially hospitable. Richard Kwejonyako has more.
The poetry contest was to instill in the young people certain historical accounts they do not know, and if they knew, have forgotten. University students from the senior high school and some people of old in Cape Coast converged to witness the Poetry Festival, a contest of wits, wisdom and oratory abilities. Speaking at the event, a senior lecturer at the Center for African and International Studies at the University of Cape Coast, Douglas Frimpong Nro, says he is appalled at the country's inability to name beautiful attractions and edifices after historical giants from Ghana who have Ghanaian, African and international significance. He says rather, such attractions and structures have been named after cities and towns, a development that he says does not help honor the country's heroes and also preserve our culture.
I am proposing that officialdom in the city should do anything that they can to name the new stadium after King Agri, whose exploits in the annals of our history is known and recorded. We have mentioned recently the ARPS, Mesa Saba, Jacob C. Agnes. You reach Bacano roundabout. Immediate past MP, the current immediate past regional minister MP put a small monument there. It has no name. Confront Bacano roundabout because the roundabout is at Bacano. That's not a name, it's a description. It's fish roundabout. So if it's fish roundabout, was there any fisherman in Cape Coast whose exploits has led us here? Name that edifice after him. It's about time that our laws work, because on the news over last night, Fulani headsmen in our country are making life a living hell for farmers in Ashanti and Bonga Half region. Yes, we are hospitable. Ghana is not the only subscriber to ECOWAS. Ghana is the only subscriber to Jaja protocols, but our people deserve to be protected. Some chiefs have said that they're going to protect themselves. I can't stand here on this open platform and support them, but I also discourage them.
Richard Kwejonyako, Joy News.
A proposed animal husbandry project in the Setre East District of the Ashanti region is causing panic among farmers and other residents over security and safety. Events at Agogo and other parts of the area, the region where Fulani herdsmen and their cattle continue to wreak havoc to life and property at the basis of their fears. However, partners for the project under the One District, One Factory policy say animals will be confined under the proposed project. Nanea Jemfi reports.
Private company NG Echo and the Seche East District Assembly estimate to invest about $50 million into the project. Some farmers in areas close to a site earmarked for the initiative fear losing their means of livelihood. Ekwia Jewa, who depends on a small piece of farmland for survival, is worried incidents at Agogo and other places may play out here. She says, "Our fear is that we may lose our farmlands to the cattle. Farming is what we do here. We are all for development, but we need assurance that they will not destroy our properties." The Animal Husbandry project will process cattle into various products for the local and export market. Construction work on the factory begins in December, after which an initial 20,000 cattle will be processed. Chief Executive of NG Echo, Eugene Nyakodankwa, says the factory will fully explore the cattle production value chain to benefit locals.
First, we'll tackle the beef. We'll be producing milk as well, and also we'll be having a tanning factory which will be producing leathers, and also we'll be doing a biogas. We'll build a biogas plant because we'll make sure that the feces of the cattle will not go to waste. Yeah, and we'll also put up an abattoir, and there will be a veterinary center which will cater for all veterinary issues in the district and even beyond. And as I said, it's an in-house. None of the cattle will be allowed to move, will go outside. So even no one will even see the cattle unless you get on site.
The Asokore Traditional Authority has allocated land for the project. Nana Professor Susubribi Krobia Asante is on my hand.
We hope it will be a source of employment, a source of industrial activity, and a source of general upliftment of the district. We really appreciate this offer.
Meanwhile, the District Assembly is encouraging investors to explore agro-processing potential of the area. Mary Boatema is District Chief Executive.
Oil one is also there, but when we are moving forward, we can bring other investors for that program. And then we have another one, banana, also. We can add all this into the one district, one family.
Nana Ojima reporting.